Greetings, ladies and laddies, and welcome back to finally another eBay rescue. This time it seems like one of the Inquisition's most prestigious agents has delved a bit too deep into the machinations of chaos. So sing your soulful incantations and cry out your most fervent prayers to the Emperor, because to clean this model from the stains of corruption, we'll need powers beyond our mere mortal means. Upon closer inspection, many flaws in the paint shop start to appear more clearly. The coats of paint are oftentimes too thin, and especially on the boots, the rough work of contrast paints is visible. Our Eisenhorn here was most likely primed white and then painted with paints heavily diluted. Most of the fine details of this cast have just been glossed over, and for some reason his hands look purple, as if he had first-degree frostbite or was part gene stealer. But these are not the biggest flaws. On many points, fragments of spruce stick out like icebergs on the Northern Sea, which is especially sad to see on his otherwise beautifully smooth pauldrons. Yet, next to all these flaws, some parts of the mini are actually done quite neatly, most noticeable with the fine lines of browns on his bolt pistol. The pre-owner of our Inquisitor was definitely invested in his work, and just lacking the experience. Well, enough with the analysis. Let's get some real work done. First things first, we ought to do something about those sprue ruins. Snipping them off so crudely really is a painful step, but we just need to push through here. After this little bit of snipping action, I wanted to refresh the black on his cloak, and then his uniform. Though I decided to not use grey, but a slightly grey tinted brown, to get some well-needed separation going. I needed to stop with the brown halfway through though, to take some brownish red and refresh the inlay of his cloak, as well as adding some where it was previously missing. Usually, I wouldn't change the pre-owner's color scheme, but this skirt is part of his now brown uniform, so leaving it red would just be confusing. Once we're finished with the brown on the outside, it's time we take care of its inlay too, this time using a dark burgundy. I also opted for using this to paint his folded sleeves and his folded collar. The final piece of upper corporal clothing is his underrobe, which is white in the original, but red in this case. First I wanted to follow this scheme, using a bright red for better distinction. But I quickly realized that these pieces drew more attention to them than they should, so I told myself that I should just use another manly color close to red. Finally it's time to get rid of this truly ailing green on his trousers and pauldrons, replacing it with a rich, saturated dark green. Oh, much better. Being clear of the obvious problems, we can now start working on the more inconspicuous ones. For the leather parts, I chose a strong brown paint, picking out the strap across his chest and cleaning up bits like his holster and his boots. We can also paint the staff on his back with this, to bring more colors to the otherwise boring back. After painting his hands in medium grey, because he wears gloves, and coloring the cover of his book in a rich crimson, we take a very, very light tone of beige to color these scrolls, I suppose? As well as the parchment on his left pauldron. For his actual skin, we take a color a little bit darker, to, make him look a little more alive. Now it's time for some true metallic silver, which we'll use to pick out details like his belt buckle and the fine trims of his pauldron. I think we're pretty much done with the tedious cleanup. We're not finished with the whole rescue, of course, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. Flat as the colors are, we establish depth and shadows with a quick and heavy black wash. I always love this step, and the result is never disappointing. As expected, the wash tied the model together very nicely, but in turn it also dulled down the colors quite a lot. We introduce the same colors back into the mix by painting mostly folds and edges this time, leaving the dark in the recesses, which helps to bring the vibrancy back up and the contrasts going. When we come to flat areas, we paint parts that catch most of the light, as a way to create distinction between the pieces. One of the highlights here was painting the top of his pauldrons in the famous jade green of his artwork. I mean, I don't know if it's actually famous, but when I think of Eisenhorn's design, it's the pauldrons that make him stand out the most. What followed was just more of this lighting all across the model, catching the details of his cast along the way, continuously making the model look more and more interesting, but not overbearing. A lot of this work only had a very subtle effect, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spare you the tedious details. Taking a rich true metallic gold, we pick out all of the tiny buttons on his cloak and uniform, as well as the trinket on his chest and the pommel of his sword, which I was totally overlooking all this time. The mustard brown I'm using here is not only good to pick out his necklace, but also serves as the perfect base for some finely embroidered golden trims on some parts of his uniform. After this base color, we take a bright yellow for the golden shine, and then finish it off with some pale beige highlights here and there. It really is the little things like these that make a character like Eisenhorn, or any character model for that matter, really look special. In this clip you'll see me painting the big folds of his cloak with a dark grey, to make the back more interesting, though I would undo much of this later. And anyway, the only part of him that we are yet to rescue is his bolt pistol. I opted strongly against meticulously cleaning the black while preserving the original neat bronze trims, and rather went with a completely fresh coat of black, after which I redid the bronze trims completely. Having the model properly rescued, it's now time for his base. I have absolutely no problem with the stone here, except for the fact that it could use some more depth. After these basics, it's time to pick out the many details that have just been glossed over before. Then it was time for his face, which would be the most important focal point of this mini. Unfortunately, I still haven't found a way to paint and film these extremely little details without both of them being ass, so please bear with me while I have the camera moved out of the way. Well, all things considered, I think the result really speaks for itself. Eisenhorn is pretty much rescued, but I want to have one last attempt at making the back more interesting to look at. While you're watching me paint the embroidery, starting off great by choosing the wrong color by the way, I have some exciting news. I got my very first PayPal donation. Xforge writes, "Thank you for the very good entertainment always. I look forward to future projects from you." Thank you so much for your generosity. I can't believe someone actually followed the link and gave their money to me, because they like my videos just that much. It's been my dream for a long time to establish myself as a content creator, and although it's still one hell of a long way to reach that goal, this first donation is huge to me. Of course, to all of you who watch my videos, thank you so much just for being here, supporting me in the comments, with votes, and even just your views. This small but very active community never fails to amaze me. Okay, I went on a bit of a longer tangent here, so let's reel it in. After 2 days of rigorous painting, the rescue of Inquisitor Eisenhorn is finally complete. Projects like these are always so tedious, but seeing the difference between before and after really makes it all worthwhile. If you know of a model that you think could really use a full-on rescue, it doesn't matter if in your own possession or still on eBay, feel free to tell me in the comments. I'm always looking for another challenge, and I'll be glad to have a look. In the next video, we will stay in the verse of Warhammer 40k and finally finish the Shroudrunners, that came with the Eldritch Omens box set. And if you'd like to see their speed painting tutorial, as well as more eBay rescues, feel free to hit the subscribe button. As I am really looking forward to seeing you again in my next video. Until then, take care.